So maybe we should be calling this the Battle of the Five Armies. Previously, we had 4 kings who beat up 5 kings, took all their stuff and their food, but that included Abram's nephew Lot, and they headed off north. Abram's chased after them, and so there's still the 4 kings and their people, and then you got Abram and his men, so that's 5 armies, right? This is the Battle of the Five Armies. So let's see how this unfolds. We don't really get a lot of detail. It says, Vayechalek alehem laila hu va'avadaiv. So hu va'avadaiv, he and his servants, vayechalek. So what's going on there? We've got no ending. We've got classic preterite vav patak dagesh, and then the yod. It's 3ms form. What's the stem? What's going on with R1 to tell us the stem? Well, R1 has kametz, and the prefix has tsere. So we've got an E class under the prefix and a kametz under the R1. But we notice that R1 is a guttural. And a guttural could not take a key part of the normal pattern for this stem, which is a dagesh forte. So we would have had Kirik dagesh kametz being a nifal. The guttural rejects the dagesh. We end up with a tsere under the prefix. And this is going to be a middle voice use of the nifal. So he and his servants divided, split up, split themselves up at night. Then vayachem. So we've seen that verb a lot in this chapter. This is from Nakah. We've got a 3MP pronominal suffix, mem, coming from haim. So he struck them, he attacked them, he defeated them, just as they had previously defeated the other kings. Then we have Vayir defame ad Chova. So a geographic name in there, unto Chova. And at Vayir defame, what do we see at the end? Yeah, we see mem, and that's from haim. So it's a 3MP pronominal suffix, just like vayakim had a 3MP pronominal suffix. The root is radaf, which means to pursue. And then we've got R1 is joined the prefix. The prefix has kirik, so classic Cal stem behavior. So they defeated them, or he defeated them, and they pursued them as far as Chova, Asher mismol ledamasek. So again, we've got a geographic name in there, and we're giving directions. So Chova, which is, and then we have mis smol. So in the mis part, that's actually the preposition min, and the nun is the dagesh forte in the scene. And small is the opposite of yamin. Yamin is right, like Benjamin, son of my right hand. Small is left. And directions are oriented toward the east, towards sunrise. So to the left, when you're facing east, is going to be the north. So Chova, which is from the area of the north of Damascus, which in better English is just to say which is north of Damascus. Then we have Vayashev et kol ha-rekush. So remember, rekush is the stuff, the equipment, the paraphernalia, the things. And then let's look at our verb there, Vayashev. Go ahead and pause the video if you need to parse it out, but let's think through the steps. 0 at the end, no ending. Vav patak dagesh on the front, no problem. Preterite. Yod is the prefix because it's got the dagesh, so 3ms. And then we're looking at shev. So this is one of those times when we're thinking, is it from yashav or is it from shuv? If it was from yashav, then that first yod would have affected the vowel under the prefix and made it different. And if we're thinking shuv, then we're asking, why is it shev? Why did we get an E-class vowel there if it's from shuv? Well, what is the stem? That's the thing we're working on. If we have the prefix over kametz, that can be either kal or hiphil for these kind of roots that have lost their second radical. And when it's hiphil, then we're going to get an E-class theme vowel, regardless of whether the second radical was a vav or a yod. So this is from shuv, but it's a hiphil. The hiphil's E-class vowel has replaced R2 entirely. So it's not he returned, but he caused the stuff to return. So he brought it back. So they pursued them as far as Choba. Then they brought back all of the paraphernalia. Vagam et lot achiv urakusho heishiv. And so heishiv is not preterite, obviously. It's also not beginning the sentence. And so this is part of what was set up here. It's not advancing the timeline forward. Vagam, and also et lot, right? Lot is the direct object. Achiv, where now it means his relative. And his stuff. And heishiv. What is heishiv? Yeah, again, we've got nothing at the end. And since we just had vayashev, maybe we should be thinking already, this is shuv again. And now it's the Hiphil perfect, the hey at the front being the Hiphil's hey. And in both the imperfect and preterite and those related forms, and in the perfect suffix conjugation related forms, because R1 has to go lead a syllable, it's pulled away from the prefix, and then the prefix, whether it's an imperfect prefix or the hey of the Hiphil perfect, ends up with a pretonic open long vowel. And because this is the third person form, the Hiphil perfect also has an E-class theme vowel. So they brought back all the paraphernalia. They also brought back Lot and his paraphernalia, Vagam et Hanashim, also the wives, Ve'et Ha'am, and also the people, presumably meaning the other people that were taken captive. Then we have another preterite, and we've got a new subject. So this whole battle, it's not like in a movie where we're going to get in there and see swinging blades and heads being lopped off and all that. It's summary. He attacked him, he won. Hey, and he brought stuff back. So this scene or this paragraph hasn't stayed in one location. It's stayed with one conceptual event, which is recapturing that which had been captured. And so it moves around in space, where the attack is, where the pursuit goes, and then the return of the things that had been captured. And so we don't have to imagine that every other verb or even virtually every sentence is starting its own paragraph. We are starting a new subject here. They've brought the stuff back, and then they're meeting the king of Sodom, who apparently did not die in a tar pit. They're meeting him, and so we sort of have a new step in the paragraph. Maybe some people would argue to make it a new paragraph because we have a new subject, but this is all just one sentence. So anyway, Vayetze Melech Sodom, the king of Sodom, went out. Likrato. So Vayetze from Yatsa, and the R1 yod has become part of the Tseire under the prefix yod. Looking at Likrato, can you see what that is? At the end, we have a Cholam Vav, which is a 3ms pronominal suffix. And then we've got a lot of letters there because we've got a tav, and then we've still got the entire root kara, and we've got a preposition lamed at the front. So there are some infinitive constructs that add tav at the end. We see it a lot for infinitives where the first radical is lost, like a first noon or a first yod word. They drop the noon, they drop the yod, they add tav on the end. Lakak does this, it drops the lamed, we get kachat. Halak does this, it drops the hey, we get leket. Here, kara also takes a tav on the end for its infinitive, but it hasn't lost R1. And this is not the kara to call out, this is the kara to meet. So the king of Sodom went out to meet him. Acharei shuvo mehakot et kedor laomer. So let's take a look here at shuvo and mehakot. Shuvo also has the 3ms pronominal suffix at the end. And we'll notice that we are following a preposition again. So likrato, acharei shuvo, and mehakot. They all have prepositions there. We've got lamed, which is usually it is an inseparable preposition. It's always attached to the next word. Achere is a preposition, but it's separated. And then we've got min as a preposition, which sometimes attaches directly to the word, sometimes it doesn't. The nun tried to become a dagesh forte in that hey, and it was rejected, and that has caused the hirik to lengthen into a tsere. So these are all cases of preposition followed by infinitive construct. Infinitive construct of kara, infinitive construct of shuv, both of those being kal, and then what about mehakot? What's going on with that? What's at the end? Yeah, we've got ot, and ot is often a feminine plural noun ending, which could also go on a participle. And there is a mem out front. And of course, I already gave it away. That's the preposition min. But you might have come to that and thought, oh, mem, that could be a participle thing, and ot, that could be a feminine plural thing. But our root, and because this is a really tricky word, is our root is naka. And so the dagesh forte in that kaf is R1 nun that used to be over silent shava. It's not a patak dagesh of a pio. Right, this is a hiphil, infinitive construct from naka. All right, so the king of Sodom came out to meet him after his return. Better English, after he returned, even though it's not a finite verb in Hebrew. From striking or defeating et Kedor Laomer. And then we've got a text critical note on Kedor Laomer. And what does it say? It says 1.4.5.9 unum verbum, and then we have a line, resh over shava, followed by lamed over kametz, and then a hash mark. And what does all that mean? Well, the first list of numbers, even though they have periods between them, we would normally think of as with commas. That's just a list of verses in this chapter where this word appears. So if you looked in those other verses, you would find this same word or this same name as unum verbum, as just one word. So all the way up to the resh being the same, but now the resh being over, or there in those places, the resh being over a shava, and there not being a makef here, and immediately la omer, all as one word. So they're alerting you to the fact that there's a spelling difference for this name at this point in the chapter. And so maybe when you make your translation, you will want to just use the same spelling that you did when you had it in the previous verses. So the king of Sodom came out to meet him after he returned from attacking or from defeating Kedor Laomer. Ve'et hamelachim asher eto, and the kings who were with him, El Emek Shaveh, to the Shaveh Valley. And there's also a note there on Shaveh. And if we look at that note, we see that the Samaritan Pentateuch has a hey on the front, and so the difference is that the reading there is articular. We would translate the same either way, and then there is a parenthetical note about that, Hu Emek Hamelech, that is, or i.e., the King's Valley. Then the next verse is going to start a new paragraph. We have a noun first construction with a perfect verb, and we're introducing a new character at that point. Now, we've been seeing some Hiphil verbs that are second vav. So why don't we do a brief review of what happens with second vav roots in the Hiphil. So on the one hand, here's the description in my textbook about these kinds of things, and then we'll look at the paradigm in just a second. So when we have a Hiphil, second vav or yod will drop out, and it's going to be replaced by the Hiphil's E-class vowel, right? Hirik or hirik yod, generally speaking. So R1 now has to lead a syllable. So let's just kind of focus on this line. Normally we would have the prefix and R1 get together to make this pretonic closed short syllable, and we can't do that anymore. So R1 is going to have to lead a syllable, and the prefix is going to get pretonic open long kametz. That would be different if there was some kind of suffix pulling the accent down. That would leave the prefix in propretonic, or what we call problem position, because it's a problem for this speaking community to keep a vowel there, and we would find a shava. So then we compare the imperfect, the jussive, and the preterite. The imperfect for these roots would be ta-shiv, but the jussive yashev, because we move the accent up and we're not going to get the mater. Similarly in the preterite, vayashev. Again, no mater, and we have this time a short E-class vowel. But the vowel is no longer determined by what R2 was, because in the Hiphil, its E-class theme vowel is going to dominate. Now, we can sometimes have confusion, because let's take the word bean, where we've got a second yod root. In the cal, we would get yavin, and for the preterite, vayaven, because the cal is going to have the same syllabic structure, giving us pretonic open long comates under the prefix, and because R2 is yod, we're going to get an E-class vowel there, just like the Hiphil would give us. In those cases, really, we've got to look at the context and see how many direct objects we have, because the Hiphil always means that we'll have an extra direct object compared to the cal, because the Hiphil means you're influencing a direct object to do whatever the action is in the cal. And so that always gives you one direct object, and if the cal would have had a direct object, then who or whatever you're influencing to do that action, it's got to apply to a second direct object. And then on the other hand, you could also just kind of handle it statistically. If you have a root that is truly second yod, then most of those are going to be cal, and not very many of them are going to be Hiphil. What about in the perfect? We've got the same pressures on our pronunciation in the perfect that we do in the imperfect. The first radical for the Hiphil is going to get pulled away from the Hiphil's prefixed hey, and that means that that prefixed hey is going to have an open, long syllable. And so instead of the hirik that we're used to seeing, we're going to have tsere, unless we've got some kind of heavy ending or pronominal suffix at the end, and that's going to put that prefixed hey in a problem position, the place where it's a problem to keep a vowel, and it's going to try and reduce all the way to shava if it can, but because hey is a guttural, it ends up being a chataf vowel. So why don't we just run through the paradigm for shuv and for bo, both of which are R2 vav. This is Hiphil all the way through. And if we just kind of glance down, we see that the prefix pretty much always has either an open long vowel or a shava in problem position, because the accent got moved down an extra step due to an ending. But our infinitive, we have comates under our prefixed hey, and then the hirik yod, the E-class theme vowel of the Hiphil. When we work our way through the imperfect, we're seeing that E-class theme vowel. Of course, it would be shorter if it was jussive or preterite, but we see the E-class theme vowel through there, and then pretonic open long comates under the prefix, right, for both of these all the way through. For the feminine plural, because we've got so much stuff at the end, it can move the accent down and leave us potentially with a shava under the prefix. When we have the preterite, we are moving the accent up. So we do not have the mater yod for the theme vowel of the Hiphil. We may not have it in the imperative, but when we've got a vowel ending, we can keep hirik yod there. When we have the participle, this can be a little tricky to us because we've got mem over tsere, and we're expecting the mem to be over patak, and if it were to lengthen, to go to kamates, but in fact, we get mem over tsere. And in the perfect, the Hiphil's hey, the prefix, when it's going to be pretonic open long, is also going to give us tsere. And generally speaking, we will only get the mater yod in the third person forms, but it is possible. You can see that it does occur in the second masculine plural. But the structure of all of these is the same. R1 getting pulled away from the prefix means the prefix is left with pretonic open long. In the perfect, that's a tsere. In the imperfect, that's a kamates. Unless we've got a whole bunch of stuff at the end, a heavy ending or pronominal suffix, and that's going to reduce the prefix's vowel to a shava. So, rapid overview of one of the tough, weak roots in the Hiphil, and hopefully that just jogs our memory and helps us stay fresh. And we will see you next time for the next paragraph.